Hello and welcome to another session of Speak to Save, which stands for the Spiritual Abuse and Violence Eradication Project. I'm your host, Mariam Mahmood, and today's guest with me is a wonderful, wonderful, inspirational person, Sheikh Nuru Mohammed, who is the current resident alim at the KSIMC, which is the Khoja Shia Islamic Muslim Center of Birmingham. And where do I begin with the praises of Sheikh Nuru? But I will tell you firstly that he is a holder of a BA in Islamic Philosophy and Mysticism from Al Mustafa International University of Iran, and he has obtained a master's in Islamic Studies from Middlesex University. He is former visiting lecturer at the Tanganza University College in Nairobi, Kenya, and he has founded the Iba Empowerment Center in Kumasi, Ghana. He's also co-founder of the Imamia Islamic Research Center based in Johannesburg. Alongside this, he is a qualified civil and commercial mediator. However, I know Sheikh Nuru because he is a former participant of our Faith Leaders Training Initiative, which was run at the University of Birmingham in the Department of Theology. I happened to be delivering that course, and that was supported by a grant from the MHCLG, the Ministry of Housing and Community Local Government. Whew, that was quite a lot to say. Thank you so much, Jazakallah khair, for joining us today, Sheikh Nuru.
Thank you, Dr. Mariam, for having me. It's indeed a great pleasure to be able to reconnect with you again.
Pleasure is all mine. Firstly, today we are going to be discussing, as we always do in these sessions, the topic of spiritual abuse. In your own words, Sheikh, if you could tell us a little bit more what it means, spiritual abuse, coming from the perspective of an internationally renowned faith leader.
Thank you. Spiritual abuse is no doubt a term that we often hear from different people within Muslim communities and even non-Muslim communities. And the discussion about spiritual abuse has gained momentum in recent days. In my personal and humble opinion, spiritual abuse is for people to use the teachings of Islam, especially the jurisprudential teachings of Islam, to take advantage of others. Is to misuse those teachings of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to our teachings in jurisprudence, you may come across so many teachings in terms of marriage, in terms of divorces, etc., etc. There are people who just take advantage of this. And by so doing, others are getting marginalized, others are getting undermined. And not only in jurisprudential fields, even if you go to theological fields or in the field of ahadith traditions, there are certain traditions that people will use to take advantage of others, most especially when it comes to race or racism. You know, you'll come across certain traditions which maybe people do not understand it properly. They will use it against other race. So in short, when we talk of spiritual abuse, we're talking of using some of the teachings of religion, and in this case, of course, Islam, because I'm a Muslim, to undermine others and to take advantage of others and to silence others, to stand for their right. And when they make attempt to stand for their right, they just told, you know what, this is the teachings of the religion. There is nothing that you can do. So it's just to take advantage of people and to silence people. To me, that is what spiritual abuse is all about.
Right. Thank you so much for such a concise answer. Can I ask you to expand on that a little bit? You mentioned a few examples. You talked about racism, which is obviously an issue. We talked about in the context of marriage and divorce, and also other minority Muslims. Could you give us a few sort of, not just examples, but a bit of a description on how it may function, whether
Yeah,
it's in the case of racialization of other Muslims and then using spiritual abuse as a tactic, or against women? Could you explain how it happens so if some of our listeners are listening and watching us, they can understand a bit better?
absolutely. Thank you so much. So the first example is to look at the status of women or men within the religion of Islam. I came across different people, even some scholars, unfortunately, who either because of lack of proper understanding or just doing it intentionally for their own selfish interest.
Mm.
If you go to Quran, you come across a verse where God Almighty mentioned, "Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa." Men are stronger, if you like, you want to go direct translation, than women. There are those who really abuse this verse. Say, you know what? We are better than you. We are stronger than you because Quran has mentioned it. Whereas that is not the understanding of this beautiful chapter or this beautiful verse. The verse is talking about the way we are in terms of our nature and the way we present ourselves in the community. Women are unique, men are unique. And what people do, hence I regard it as spiritual abuse, they'll just quote only this part of the verse without quoting the entire verse. If you go throughout the entire verse, you realize that Allah is mentioning that each and every one of us has his own uniqueness. And in this context, it's just talking about that uniqueness. So that's one example. Another example or trace of this is that when it comes to divorce, I mean, if you read Islam from whatever school of thought it might be, we are often taught that the key to divorce is in the hand of a man. So man can just decide to divorce anyhow. This is also as a result of absolute misunderstanding, absolute misrepresentation of the teaching of Islam. But there are chunk out there who are abusing this teaching and making it difficult for their women when the women don't want to stay in that relationship. No, it's in my hand. You find you want people to come to beg him, massage him, pat on his shoulder, please let her go, let her go. And a woman also, unfortunately, maybe because of her respect for Islam, quote unquote, she will, no, he doesn't want to give me, this is my right. No, that's not the case. Islam is very clear. There are instances where a woman has also her own right. In fact, not instances. If she doesn't want to be in that relationship, she's free to ask for the divorce and go. So there is abuse here, in my personal opinion, which needs to be tackled, which needs to be resolved. Alhamdulillah, there are women out there who know they are right and they understand these teachings. So some are capitalizing on this just to silence women. That is also an example.
Yeah.
When it comes to racism, there are so much, really. First example, because I'm a Shia who believe in Karbala, who believe in Ashura, for instance. So you realize in the camp of Imam Hussein, who stood for justice in Karbala, there was a Black person by the name John. So if you read some of the books, you'll come across saying that John, when he went to ask for permission from Imam Hussein to go and defend, to go to the field, and Imam Hussein, of course, granted him that permission, and he said something to the fact that, this my color, I will be happy if this color can change to be something else, So you find some people quote this, unfortunately, which is a total fabrication. It is neither here nor here, And there are other traditions that says that, don't give people of color the position of authority. And then you find people abusing this. So these are some of the examples that are there, which is totally not acceptable. It has to be condemned and it has to be put in its proper context. Yeah.
Thank you so much for enlightening us with that. And of course, this is something that is ever present across the communities, across the different schools of thought and traditions. Um, and whether it's minority Muslims of any kind, or Black Muslims, or Shia Muslim, or somebody who is a woman. And, just dwelling on that a little bit, it's rather unfortunate that we see this happening, this abuse of power, which essentially leads to spiritual abuse, happening in the confines of our homes and in our societies. But then, of course, some faith leaders, unfortunately, whether it's in the instance of granting a divorce for a woman, or whether it is about giving the position of authority to a person who of color, who is slightly darker than you, these sort of things, often the decision is made by the faith leader, or they are enabling these unfortunately rather detestable decision making. So, with that in mind, what role do faith leaders in our communities play in order to mitigate this sort of abuse from perpetuating and happening further?
Yeah, no doubt faith leaders have very important roles to play within our communities, whether minority or majority. A faith leader is a faith leader. And faith leader really is central and pivotal to this community. Each and every member of the community look up to this faith leader. So he or she is expected to be presentable and to be a role model to all and sundry. There are three major rules that each and every faith leader should make sure he or she plays. Number one is to inspire your congregation. You have to inspire them in a true sense of inspiration. Number two, you have to teach them, give them information, and not just information, right and correct information. And number three, you have to assist them to socialize properly within that community. Now, looking at these three major rules that a faith leader assumes in his or her own community, then it tells us that when it comes to spiritual abuse or taking advantage of one's authority, the first person to be heard speaking, either for something or against something, should be a faith leader. Your role is to promote righteousness and to forbid evilness, because all the trio that we have just mentioned are under promoting righteousness and forbidding evilness. If a faith leader cannot come out openly and condemn wrongs in his or her own community, then he or she has not understood the meaning of being a faith leader and the purpose of being there. It defeats the purpose completely. So we have the rules to play here, that on Friday when we give our sermons, and we know that there are certain abuses that are taking place in our own communities, in our own backyard, we do not expect someone to come and tell us. We should be heard speaking against it and condemning it and creating awareness. Because I believe strongly, if we play our roles properly, we will definitely be able to build a very strong and healthy community.
Right. Let's build on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So sometimes there is a certain person, either a faith leader or let's say somebody with an awful lot of power and clout in the wider community, usually a male figurehead in the community. Say if, they are very reputable, however, they are known to be committing this form of abuse, spiritual abuse. So what should faith leaders do? Say if there are other imams or sheikhs in the community and people are coming to them and saying, this person, he could be another imam, or he could be a head of a charity or a school, or somebody who is respected. and there's people coming to you, and there are a couple of imams that people are going to, and they all know this. It is, quote unquote, an open secret. Now, what should those people, those faith leaders, do in that circumstance, do you suggest?
Yeah, in my opinion, every wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter who committed it.
Hmm.
And of course, we do see this out there, whereby some people, either with financial muscles or with some social status, they tend to abuse those powers.
Yeah.
That who is going to face me? Who is going to tell me? I'm contributing a lot in the community. I'm giving so much money. I'm this and that and that. No. A faith leader has to be above all, in the sense that your voice must be a powerful voice. If a faith leader cannot speak truth to power in his community, then the faith leader does not belong there. So in this case, when a member of my community comes to me, a male or a female, that, you know what, Sheikh, there is this thing going on. The responsibility now is within me to ensure that it is confronted and it is dealt with properly. It has to be that way. Otherwise, we need to close the mosque and go back home. Yes, we need to close it. So it is my duty. Of course, it is also important for me to be fair, just, and do due diligence. And the Holy Quran makes it very clear. When someone comes to you with a news concerning something or somebody, you need to make sure you verify.
Of course.
Once it is properly verified, then of course, it has to be dealt with properly, either from the legal perspective or from the religious perspective. But we cannot brush it under the carpet. It is not acceptable in a legal sense, and it is not acceptable in a jurisprudential sense and theological sense.
Completely. Thank you so much for that answer. With that in mind, do you suggest certain organizational practices or potentially processes that you would recommend to other mosque leaders or community leaders of faith in order to prevent this or
yes,
to
definitely
deal with it?
Yeah, you know, as a mosque or as a faith leader, let's talk about a faith leader. We must always try as much as we can to upgrade ourselves when it comes to our knowledge base, you know. It's very, very important. Of course, all of us, we go to Islamic seminaries and we get to learn about Quran, traditions, lives of the prophets of God, life of our own beloved Prophet Mohammed, peace be upon him and his blessed family. These are crucial. These are our point of departure. But then when you come to the field, there are certain things that also you need to go and acquire its understanding. Say the family law within your own country, for instance, you know, mental health, for instance, you know, I don't get to be taught mental health or how to mitigate it in my seminary. So I need to learn about it, you know, the whole concept of abuse. Yes, we have it within the religion of Islam. There are punishment for abuser, but then I need to understand it also within the context of the country that I live in. So really, way forward to all this is to understand the religious perspective and to understand the context of the country. And that is the faith, you know, program that we had, which I was one of your students. And it was really good because we had discussions on family law and other matters, which I found really intriguing and very interesting. So by getting all this information, what do? Let people start hearing you speaking about this during your Friday sermons. Pick up a topic. I want to just give you overview of family law from in UK. And then look for Islamic verses, Quran, Hadith, and support your argument, for instance. Today's topic is about the abuse. What are the consequences of abuse within UK context? And what does Islam say? When people start hearing this from you, they tend to take it more serious and they will take you very serious. So I will really humbly encourage myself and all our faith leaders and mosques, not just to rely only on what we normally study in our seminaries, but to widen the scope of our understanding and to enhance that understanding. Because if you do not have that proper understanding, when someone comes to you with a complaint, you think that the person is just complaining and just like talking too much. You know, you go certain communities, you raise an issue, so no, you like talking too much. It is not like that. Attend those courses, hear people sharing their testimonies and sharing their powerful stories. That's when you will hold and pause a little bit and say, you know what, this is something serious and I need to do something about it. If you know it and you don't do about it, it is an offense and it is illegal in itself. So that's really my humble plea and suggestion to all. Let us learn and widen the scopes of our understanding. That will really help us to be able to mitigate these things easily within our community.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for such a holistic answer to that. So it requires training. It requires not just taking that training and learning from it, but also implementing it and disseminating that information widely. And as you said, I think this is really crucial, that your voice resonates and is taken so much more seriously in the community because you are a person of great standing and you are respected and followed, because that is what a leader is. It is not just about serving the community, but also influencing them, as you rightly said. Before we finish off, I would like to ask you if there is any sort of advice you could give to ordinary people, ordinary congregants, or members of the community or society at large. What role can they play in mitigating the spiritual abuse in our midst?
Thank you. I think what I would like to say here is that no community is immune from challenges, from problems, from vices. We are not infallible. We only try our level best to be perfect. So my humble advice to members of our communities across the globe, you know, pick up things that you think are not right and reach out to the leaders of the community, including the imam. Don't just keep quiet. Because I know there are people out there, they see something, they just keep quiet. When you keep quiet, you then allowing injustice to continue taking place. Don't keep quiet. It is the duty of the leadership of our communities to ensure that those communities are run smoothly. And when somebody quotes something to say, no, Prophet said this, Imam said this, no, if it doesn't make sense, raise it with the leadership and the authorities of that community. So don't keep quiet. Number two, in addition to really reporting it, speak against wrongs. It is your duty. It is your responsibility. Speak against it. Don't brush it under the carpet. You know it is wrong. Why do you want to keep quiet? We want to build a very solid and sound community that all will look up to. So speak against it, which is of great importance. And last but not least, we do have across the globe members of our communities, Muslim communities, even non-Muslim communities who are experts. They've got expertise in their field of studies. We have psychologists, we have, medical doctors. So people know certain things which the imam might not know, which the president of the community or the executive might not know. Share your knowledge. Abuse may be happening, but some may not know that it's abuse. Because it is something that has been happening for many years. So it has become part and parcel of the lives of people, or maybe somebody is coming from other parts of the world and those things were just normal or are normal in those parts of the world. But you are here as a member of the community, you know this is something serious. Don't keep quiet. Apply your knowledge there. Raise awareness. Keep people informed. By so doing, we'll be doing justice and due diligence to our community. And remember, it is not only the leaders, who can build the community. It is all of us. You need the leaders, and the leaders must be exceptional. Likewise, you need exceptional followers. You can have an excellent, exceptional leader. If the followers are not exceptional, forget about progress. Likewise, you can have an, exceptional followers. When the leaders are not exceptional, forget about progress. We need exceptional followers, exceptional leaders, and obvious aims and objectives for us to be able to build a very strong community.
Inshallah. That is profoundly beautiful. Thank you so, so much for your time and for speaking to us, for enlightening all our viewers. Inshallah, we'll have you on again one day to discuss things further. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Doc. It's a great pleasure. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.